They make us happy. They give us energy. They help us to grow as people, as a business, as a country. They feed many mouths, nearby and far away. They inspire. They provide color and fragrance. They connect, and they bring together. Our strength is to innovate, to make sustainable, to work together, to look beyond borders, to invest in solutions for now and the future. We co-create together with companies, knowledge institutions and governments. We have the knowledge to enable growth, the technology to make progress, the drive to offer opportunities. We have the willpower to improve, here in the Netherlands and worldwide. We are convinced that we can do more with less, that we can achieve more together with fewer natural resources. Innovating for here and for the world calls for sustainable solutions and smart technologies, with consideration for our environment, with a passion for people, for our growth and our planet, and for the significance we have with all of our expertise, our training opportunities, our innovations and our international connections, now and in the future. We are top sector horticulture and starting materials. Every day, we are committed to green habitats, health, trade, economy, employment, energy, and of course, flowers. Top sector horticulture and starting materials, together towards a sustainable future.
Most important thing is that you must solve critical problems for society. And for Singapore, we have many challenges as a small city-state without a natural hinterland. So if the deep tech can help solve many of the problems in Singapore, then certainly it will be able for us to offer this to the rest of the world as solutions to improve the quality of life for many people elsewhere in the world. First thing is that you must have people who want to solve these problems and want to make a difference. Once you have the people with the correct attitude, then you need people and teams of people with the correct competencies to come together to resolve those issues, not just from a technological perspective, but also from the non-technological perspective. Now, having done the second step, then the third step is an enabling environment whereby from finance to IP to business model, all this will be important to help us put together the ecosystem to support the translation of the deep tech ideas from ideas to applications.
I think it's very difficult to say that there are SDGs that are more pressing because they all represent fundamental challenges to humanity. But there are some goals, for example, around the eradication of extreme poverty There's still around 650 million people who live in extreme poverty. There's also around 800 million people living in hunger. So there's some very urgent basic needs. But all of these sustainable development goals actually advance the same cause around humanity. So if you start to look at health issues or you start to look at environmental issues, you're actually going to make an impact on the number of people living in poverty or living in hunger. So the Deep Tech Summit has been really interesting for me. It is very interesting to see what's happening in the Singapore ecosystem of innovation. For us, what we want to do is find the best ideas, the best technologies, the best business models out there that are being developed now, that are life-changing technologies that can be brought to people globally, those who are furthest behind. And so the Deep Tech Summit kind of showcases a number of those emerging technology trends that we hope to be able to adapt and bring for the benefit of humanity more broadly.
They make us happy. They give us energy. They help us to grow as people, as a business, as a country. They feed many mouths, nearby and far away. They inspire. They provide color and fragrance. They connect and they bring together. Our strength is to innovate, to make sustainable, to work together, to look beyond borders, to invest in solutions for now and the future. We co-create together with companies, knowledge institutions and governments. We have the knowledge to enable growth, the technology to make progress, the drive to offer opportunities. We have the willpower to improve, here in the Netherlands and worldwide. We are convinced that we can do more with less, that we can achieve more together with fewer natural resources. Innovating for here and for the world calls for sustainable solutions and smart technologies, with consideration for our environment, with a passion for people, for our growth and our planet, and for the significance we have with all of our expertise, our training opportunities, our innovations and our international connections, now and in the future. We are top sector horticulture and starting materials. Every day, we are committed to green habitats, health, trade, economy, employment, energy, and of course, flowers. Top sector horticulture and starting materials, together towards a sustainable future.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning to friends who are joining us from the Netherlands, Europe, and other time zone. Welcome to our webinar today on the future of food urban farming, brought to you by SG Innovate and the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Singapore. My name is Tuan from SG Innovate. To friends who are joining us for the first time, SG Innovate is a Singapore government-owned venture capital firm. We help Singapore and the world to build deep tech innovations in areas such as artificial intelligence, medical technologies, quantum technologies. We invest in startups. We help to work with scientists to bring their research from lab to market. We also build deep tech talent, and we really like to engage with the deep tech innovation ecosystem through events like what we are doing today. We really believe in the power of science and technology to benefit humanity. And one big area that is present today is how the world can feed ourselves sustainably moving forward. And that is why, together with the Netherlands, we are starting this 5-part series on the future of food. During our first webinar last month, we talked about how traditional farms have been very well equipped to be smart these days. And we also talk about how city skyscrapers are increasingly becoming fertile ground for urban farms. And therefore, today we want to really delve deeper into the topic of urban farming, which I am sure you will be hearing more expert perspectives from our panel of industry leaders soon enough. And in order to get us continue with the program, I would now like to invite Sabine, our partner and friend from the Netherlands Embassy, to also say a couple of words. Sabine, please.
Thank you, Tuan, for your kind words. Welcome everyone to our second webinar session on the future of food. Today we're going to learn more about urban indoor farming, this innovative way of food production we see popping up mainly in big metropolitan cities around the world, like Singapore and Hong Kong. I would like to thank our guest speakers, our moderator, but also the SG Innovate team for their great efforts and their great collaboration. As an agricultural advisor at the embassy, I facilitate collaboration between the Netherlands and Singapore in the agricultural sector. One example of such collaboration is the consortium Urban Farming Partners. This is a collaboration of Dutch and Singapore companies in which Grace, one of our guest speakers from today, is part of. Urban Farming Partners will set up an indoor high-tech farm this year in Singapore. Another great example, of course, of our work is this webinar series in which we share knowledge from both the Netherlands and Singapore about the future of food. I would also like to take this opportunity to inform you about the Global STARS call. Global STARS is a governmental funding instrument that supports collaborative R&D development between Dutch and Singapore companies. Agri-food technology is one of the focus areas from the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, RVO. Next to circular economy, digital technologies and climate adaptation. More information will be sent in an email after this webinar. I now would like to hand over to Luc Tay, who will be moderating the panel discussion. Luc is a principal futurist at the Planning and Organization Division at the Singapore Food Agency. Luc has an academic background in political science and history and focuses on foresight and scenario planning. At SFA, he leads cross-disciplinary research into future trends and scenarios for the food system. Over to you, Luc.
Thank you so much, Sabine. So greetings and welcome again to SG Innovate, the Future of Food Urban Farming online event. I'm a futurist at SFA, and it's my honor to moderate today's session. I think we all live in very exciting times, especially for the food system, with rising concern about feeding sustainably a growing and more demanding and more urban population. And that all was even before COVID. So the shock to the system that we have now, and we're still climbing out of as a global community, and this crisis really put in yet even greater focus the importance, the tenuousness of food security for many around the world, and the fragility of complex and far-flung food supply chains. And so I put to you that the sense is that making more and better food close to market in and around cities has never been more important. And hence doing it sustainably for the environment, for businesses, and for consumers is ever more important as a success factor for the global food system. So to make sense of all of this, where are we headed, what are some of the best practices, the inspiration, and the vision for the future, we have an excellent panel today. And in fact, let me now hand over to Cindy, Grace, and Dylan to introduce themselves briefly in turn. Over to you, Cindy. Cindy, your mic.
Oh, how can I still forget after so many months of working from home? Sorry, people. My name is Cindy. I work for Rabobank. Rabobank is a financial service provider trying to support a sustainable and profitable food and agribusiness sector globally. And I'm part of the research team of Rabobank because besides finance, we also provide knowledge and networks. And I work as a senior analyst for the fresh produce sector, fruits and vegetables, which is of course a very exciting and great sector to be in. So I'm also excited to be here today and discuss about these innovative ways of farming.
Thank you. Over to you, Grace.
Thank you very much, Luke, and thank you very much, SG Innovate and the Netherlands Embassy for having me here today. So hello, everybody. My name is Grace, and I'm the co-founder of Urban Farming Partners Singapore, or UFPSG in short. So UFPSG is a collaboration between entrepreneurs from the Netherlands and Singapore, and we are currently working on a state-of-the-art indoor urban farm in Singapore, utilizing 100% proven Dutch technologies. So I have a personal mission in making a difference to the future of food by really looking at the food challenges that we face today, and then working with like-minded people to come up with forward-thinking, creative solutions to solve these challenges. And my vision for the future of farming is definitely vertical, indoor setting, using the best-in-class proven technologies. I'm looking forward to share more later. Thank you, Luke.
Thanks, Grace. And last but certainly not least, Dylan.
Hi, I'm Dylan So. I am a part-time student and a full-time son. And I am a part of One Kind House in Singapore, which I'll go more into later, but basically it's a 21st century kampong. And, you know, hopefully I can give a local young point of view on what the future of food might be and what it might mean for Singaporeans.
Great, Dylan. Well, okay, I think we have quite a lot of ground to cover. Maybe let's begin really by posing some questions to each of the panelists, and then we'll get into a discussion. So maybe to set the scene, I'd like to invite Cindy first to really put in context what we're talking about when we're talking about urban indoor farming, among some of the other also exciting new developments in the food space internationally. Cindy, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Luke. I'm going to show you some pictures because I think it's good to put urban farming into a little bit broader perspective today. There's a lot of different farming systems possible to grow our food, and I think it really depends on the specific situation, what kind of solution is the best solution. So, of course, there's still a lot of outdoor farming in fields, in soils, but we also have systems of outdoor cultivation which are actually not in the soil, but on tabletops. This is used, for example, for strawberries. There is high-tech indoor farming, but also low-tech indoor farming, polytunnels, etc. And there's vertical farming, which is still quite new and developing fast, but it's actually still small. For example, in outdoor vegetable farming, there are over 17 million hectares globally. In greenhouse farming, there's about 500,000 hectares. And in vertical farming, it's less than 50 hectares globally. Urban farming, we don't know because it's so diverse. And we have home gardens, rooftop gardens, people have plants in their homes, and Dylan will show some examples for that. And in vertical farming, it's more of a high-tech business, but urban farming can be either low-tech or high-tech business. So there's a lot of different technologies that can be used or not used. And I think people starting business in this should look really carefully what kind of technology fits with my situation, the climate, the area I'm in, etc. But I think that's really important to know, because there's no one size fits all solution for everybody. And it depends also, I think, on the funds available. Currently, there is a lot of funding available. Traditional bank loans are still a bit difficult to finance new vertical farming and urban farming, but there's a lot of investment money available for these new ways of farming. But depends also on the business model. What is your objective? Do you want to be an efficient large-scale producer, or do you want to be a local provider of food and maybe also have a sort of educational role, or want to provide a green area to your neighborhood? So there's a lot of different ways that you can operate these farms, I think. Climate and resources are really important. Do you have electricity available? What is your climate already perfect for outdoor cultivation? Maybe indoor cultivation is not the right solution, but if you live in an area with a harsh climate, like a very cold climate or extremely hot, it may be very wise to grow in a completely controlled environment. Competition is important.
Hi Cindy, this is Tuan from SG Innovate here. I think, your audio sound has been breaking up quite badly. I'm not sure whether there is any issue on your end. Some of the members of the audience have also been experiencing the same.
Oh, I hear everything perfect.
Yep, now it's better.
Okay. So, and I think to finish my short talk is that customers are really important. So it's not only about the technology to produce, but in the end, you should really look carefully, what does my customer want? What is he willing to pay for the product? And what does he or she need? So I think it's really important when you consider in starting a farming business to look at all systems available and look at your local conditions and find out what is a very customized solution for your situation. So, and I think that the next two speakers will give really great examples in the way that they have found their business model, and they will elaborate on that. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Cindy, for that overview. And I think you introduced some useful topics. You know, one of them, the universe of different farming modes in and around cities. In fact, I think our two Singapore farmers have different models. One commercial scale farm, another solution for home-based, maybe indoor, around the home farming. So, I think we'll come back in the discussion on some of the themes you raised, like on raising capital, for example. You know, how do you fund such ventures? So may I now move over to Grace. Grace, you mentioned how you're passionate about looking at the food challenge, I think innovating and forward thinking and creative solutioning. So I just wanted to invite you to share a bit on your journey into this new farm venture. We talked about how really your background touches, I think, the different parts of the food, energy, and water nexus, and that's so exciting. You know, so what's up with your new business and collaboration? Who will your customers be? How will you reach them? Over to you, Grace. Excuse me. Grace, your mic.
Okay, so I'm going to start off by sharing with everybody a little bit about my background and also how I got onto urban farming. So I'm actually a HR professional by training, and I was head of HR for an infrastructure construction company based in Singapore. And after I relinquished my role as head of HR a few years ago, I got redesignated to take charge of corporate culture and sustainability. And part of my role under sustainability was social responsibility and energy and environmental management. And it was during that period of time when I was learning about sustainability that I became very much aware of the ridiculous amount of carbon footprint generated by the food supply chain. So the first thing I did was I stopped eating beef. So I cut off beef from my diet completely as a gesture of protest. And every time I visit the supermarket for some arugula or kale, I would ask myself, what is the carbon footprint of this vegetable? And so I started to become really obsessed with food sustainability and subsequently also food security when I read that more than 90% of the produce in Singapore is imported. And I started growing my own food in my little hydroponics tower. So it's literally farm to table. But there is only so much I can grow at home. And I have since been really dreaming of, having an indoor urban farm that can contribute to Singapore's food security and sustainability, as well as food safety, which is so important. And you know what they say about the power of manifestation. So I'm quite spiritual, and I believe that when you put your intention out there, magical things happen. So that's how I got into the urban farming space. Urban Farming Partners Singapore comprises of a group of experts in food production, food processing, logistics, urban planning, and engineering and construction. So we have all come together to bundle our forces and know-how to design a unique and sustainable urban farming concept to be used in cities and megacities, and which will be rolled out in Singapore first. So our business strategy is to provide a total solution for urban farms in or close to large urban areas, from design and engineering to construction of the farm, to production, training, and also the setting up of marketing and sales channels to promote locally grown organic leafy greens and herbs with a guaranteed, premium quality and freshness throughout the year. We are also here to provide a sustainable and circular alternative to traditional horticulture, which we believe is the real solution to reduce availability of arable land due to land degradation. And our solution includes, using solar as well as rainwater harvesting, and in the future also CO2 recycling. So this is essentially our mission. And in addition to that, we will be using digital technology to build a supply chain that allows us to track and trace the produce from farm to fork. So this is more for food safety purposes. And we truly believe that our solution will ultimately reduce the pressure on our environment and improve biodiversity. So we are a startup and we don't have a lot of capital to play with. So with limited resources, we don't want to set up complex processing and packaging lines. So for a start, we intend to sell to off-takers. They already have their customer base, which is mainly in the F&B sector, and they can tell us exactly what produce to grow, and we would grow for them. Our value proposition, I would say, firstly, is our 28 days crop cycle, which means we can change the crops to grow according to what our customers want on a monthly basis. And secondly, of course, is our host of Dutch technologies that guarantees premium quality produce every single harvest. And thirdly, Dutch technologies, seeing is believing, trust me, okay? And thirdly, we will be certified organic despite our growing medium being water. So our hydroponic system is very unique. The water that we use is a living ecosystem by itself, just like soil. When we first started working on this project, we invested heavily in a feasibility study, and part of the study was to connect with buyers to understand their buying habits. So we are pretty well acquainted with them. In fact, when we sent out our press release recently, many of these buyers whom we conducted our market survey with congratulated us on our progress and inquired about our timeline. They wanted to know when will be our first harvest. So that's really good news. Yeah, I think that's about what I will share for now. Luke.
Well, thanks, Grace. So in fact, I guess what you have is really thinking systematically across the whole template of what you need to get your startup off the ground. So let's talk more about that later and try to relate it to some broader themes. One thing I'm interested in, for example, would be, what would you automate, or what would you have done with manpower? How do you simplify, for example? Okay, so let's go now to Dylan. I think despite your tender years, I think you've accomplished a lot. And so tell us all about how your journey has brought you here to One Kind Block, and really where do you see this going? Who's your customer? There's been a lot of interest in home and community farming, I think fair to say in Singapore, around the world. How does this really connect with that?
Yeah, I'd say it's growing interest. Okay, how should I start? In 2011, I was given the chance to talk at the Singapore Management University in Singapore about the future of urban farming. I did a TEDx talk on that. And you know, I met some people. My dad started doing urban farming and got the whole family into it. After that, in 2015, I co-wrote and illustrated this book with my dad called The Big Red Dot, which is a children's book for adults about believing in yourself. And that gave me some money because we sold some books to do more projects. And with that money, we decided to encourage people to farm in Singapore and be more sustainable, and you know, make cities fertile. So in 2016, I designed the GIY stick, which is the grow it yourself stick, and launched it successfully on Kickstarter, which is basically hydroponic. It's basically a watering system that works by capillary action. So you recycle a bottle, you recycle a cloth, and it automatically waters your plant. Like there's no easier way to put it. Your plant decides how much water it needs. But then, you know, it didn't really make cities fertile. It didn't encourage urbanites to start growing, because it assumed that you were already used to growing stuff in your apartment and you were used to growing soil, growing from soil in your apartment. So like since then, I've been prototyping, making a growing system that's truly easy, modular. It adapts to any apartment, and you can grow anything out of it. And you know, to make cities fertile, you have to make apartments fertile. And then after a couple iterations, we realized that had to be hydroponic, because that's like the easiest way. And most apartments don't want to have soil because of insects, creepy crawlies, and also pots take up a lot of space. So why don't I just show you what the one-kind block looks like? Essentially, there are two blocks like this with plants inside, and it's completely modular. So you can take it apart, put it together, and the more one-kind blocks you have, you can just keep adding, right? So the only limit is, I guess, the size of your apartment, the windows. And the attachment system is such that you can hang it anywhere in your house. So it allows you to hang with zip ties that come in the pack. If you want to hang it on your wall, you can use wall hooks that support 3 kilograms. If you're really hardcore, you can use adhesive tape or nails. But zip ties and wall hooks would do the trick. You can hang it on window grills and balconies and practically anything. Here we've started growing some saplings just to see the progress of how the water and the sponge interacts. So this is one of the prototypes. Here we've actually grown some watercress with the roots, if you can see, which are very healthy, and some Mexican tarragon. So it's not like it can only grow small herbs, it can also grow proper vegetables like spinach and whatnot. And I guess the goal of this is to make cities fertile, make apartments fertile, and hopefully make us more sustainable, especially in these times of the COVID-19, where our food integrity is being questioned more and more. So yeah, I guess that's it for me. I can talk about One Kind House. One Kind House is a 21st century kampong that my grandma is running here in Singapore. She is Singapore's #1 cooking class Airbnb experience host. So there we have a completely self-sustaining urban farm. It's soil-based, a little bit of hydroponics here and there. But in her cooking classes, we meet urbanites and urban farmers alike. And I guess we get to have conversations with them, and it's helped me craft One Kind Block into what urbanites need it to be.
Great. I think your journey is really a living embodiment of the type of entrepreneurship and innovation and food innovation that we hope will take off. You know, so with that in mind, what's next for One Kind Block, and what would your advice be to younger Singaporeans like yourself in looking at new ventures? And do you have any fans?
Sorry, what was the first question?
So what's next for One Kind Block, and what advice would you have for other would-be agri entrepreneurs, youths?
Yeah, so we did the initial run of One Kind Block on Kickstarter. It went very well, but it got 20% funded, and we had to cancel it. But from there, we've met some people who would like to support us with further prototyping when we return to Kickstarter. And we have a community on Facebook now. So basically, we are going to make One Kind Block a more complete platform. So think of it this way. If in the same way Lego is a toy platform, One Kind Block is an urban farming platform. Okay, so right now it's just blocks because that's the prototypes that we've done. But right now we've already made CAD/CAM designs for corner blocks, grow light blocks, solar power pump blocks, which will come back when we return to Kickstarter in about a month or so. And to other young Singaporeans who have an idea, you know, we live in such an age where information is everywhere. It's almost impossible to say that you can't do something. And if you have an idea that you think will work, you can always find a group of people that can bring it to market and bring it to fruition. And don't think that you need to go to university to come up with an idea. You know, you can find a group of people and prototype, which is the most important thing. Kickstarter is a good platform because it's what I like to call an idea validation platform. So you can put your idea out there with a roughly done prototype. And if people like it, they support you, give you money, and you actually produce it. So I think that's a good way to start. But you know, it's contextual, and you do what you feel you must. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks, Dylan. I especially like how your gear is like an analogy of how we're building a new food system block by block. And, you know, be it Grace's venture or yours, the iterative innovation that comes with it. So I think, you know, we've established quite a good range of thoughts to proceed with a wider discussion. I see many questions coming up as well. I'll keep one eye on them. We'll have a Q&A after this. But I just wanted to put on the table for all of you to jump in a few things. You know, so you guys have different ventures. Cindy has given the global context. Where do you see urban farming going? Where do you see indoor vertical farming, be it factory scale or home scale, fitting in with your vision of the overall food future? So what would success look like in Singapore, in the region, in the world for your ventures? Maybe Grace?
So personally, I feel that urban farming in commercial real estate has the potential to positively impact millions across the globe. And I'm talking about more than just rooftop farming, you know, community farming or backyard farming. I mean, all these are great. Please don't get me wrong. All these are great. But to see real impact in food security, which is what many cities are concerned about, then we need to look at urban farming operations that utilize controlled environments, because that's what's going to potentially boost food production massively, while simultaneously reducing the negative ecological impacts of agriculture. So urban farms have this ability to shift farming operations from the impacts of climate change or shifting weather patterns, and not to mention, you know, rapid urbanization, which is taking over arable land. And there is also this issue of resource scarcity. You know, conventional agriculture sucks up 70% of our global water consumption. And based on a report from the UN, half of the world's population will experience water scarcity by 2030. So conventional agriculture production methods are unsustainable. So I believe the upside potential of urban farming is massive, and expanding, you know, urban farming partners, currently we are building this center of excellence in Singapore to showcase to the world, what we can do with proven technologies. And we definitely have the intention of bringing this solution to other megacities in the world. Okay, Luke, it's your turn to be muted.
So great, let me follow up and also maybe pose a question to Cindy on this. So I think it's quite a bold vision you sketch, an audacious vision. Back to the food, energy, water nexus. I think we understand that that hydroponics usually is quite water efficient. But how about the energy side of the nexus, in terms of the cost and I guess ultimately the sustainability? How is the business model moving forward to be energy efficient?
Yeah, that's a good question, Luke. Is the sound coming through now? Yeah. And I think that is one of the main challenges at this time for vertical farming or controlled farming is the high energy use, which also results in a fairly high CO2 footprint for vertically farmed products. But I'm sure that in the future there will be enough sustainable energy sources to solve this problem. So that's, I think, is a solution that people have to work on in the coming years. But currently this is not yet the case. And this also makes it economically a difficult model in some countries, depending on electricity prices. So I think electricity costs, but also sometimes labor costs are still quite a burden for vertical farming, as well as the high investment costs. If companies manage to solve these issues, there is a bright future for this way of farming, I'm sure, depending on the area they're in and the needs of customers. It doesn't really make sense to produce staple crops like wheat, rice, or potatoes in a vertical farm, but for high value vegetables and other fresh products, it's a really good farming system, and because water use is limited and also the use of chemicals is not needed. So I think that's a big benefit of this system.
Okay, Cindy, allow me to throw two more follow-up questions at you. One is really, since you're a bank, finance, how do you see, indoor urban farming and other progressive ventures getting funded? I think in Singapore, we have a thriving VC space, for example. Then there are banks, I think there are angels. So where is this going?
Indeed, it's a lot of venture capital and also other investors stepping in. It's difficult to finance these businesses with just normal bank loans because most of the businesses are new and don't have a proven track record. For banks, we always use track records and proven business models, so that's extremely difficult. However, as Rabobank, we have a few clients in Europe already that are working in vertical farming. We found some solutions going around this, but I think it's good to start with venture capitalists or crowdfunding is maybe a good solution for things businesses like Dylan has, because it will be very likable solutions for the bigger crowd. And I think there's many ways. Finance is not a problem. I think that's not the main challenge. The main challenge is to adapt to the needs of the customer and to grow the best products in the farms.
So maybe my last question for you for now is, just looking ahead, maybe 10, 20 years, which is what a futurist does, so I'm bringing you into my world. Where do you think different types of urban farming will take off the most? Around Asia or maybe around the world? And how do you see the future food production ecosystem looking like? Like right now, lots of people are talking about, shorter supply chains. For example, how much food flow will be, halfway around the world, how much will be close at hand?
Interesting question. I see vertical farming and urban farming popping up everywhere in the world. Actually, we should not forget that as even centuries ago, urban farming was the usual way of farming. All fresh produce had to be produced close to the customers because there was no transportation available. So it was actually usual business a very long time ago. But when people founded or created trucks, airplanes, ships, and could store products for a longer time, at that time we started to produce far, far away. And now we realize that, again, because of environment, because of cities becoming really big, that it still makes sense to grow them very close to the consumer, especially when they're fresh. So it's not a really new thing, but I think it will revive again. And we will see smaller farms inside urban areas around the world, in I think South America, in the big Asian metropolitan areas, in some North American metropolitan areas. And we also see efficient farming systems just next to the cities. For example, large-scale greenhouses and arable crop farming will still be done more remotely because you can transport commodities cheaply and also environmental friendly by sea transportation. So that's not too big of an issue. So I think we will see all kinds of different farming systems next to each other, more adapted to infrastructure and urban areas. But I think Asia is one of the best places for urban farming because there are really big metropolitan areas. And Europe is one of the worst places to start urban farming because there is already a lot of efficient fresh produce farming in greenhouses available, and there's not really a need to grow them closer to the cities. It's already quite close. So, but also on tropical islands where it's difficult to bring in fresh fruit and where there's limited competition, or in Antarctica, very cold climates, or in the deserts, could be really a good solution. And especially when they're able to produce low cost and sustainable energy, this could be a good way of producing food. But there's several steps that need to be taken before it's economically viable, I think. And Africa, places like that will be kind of difficult because there's still a lot of competition from field production, which is cheap and people buy it on street markets, etc. So it will only be suitable for bigger cities with high incomes because there is a cost involved with it. So you need people that can afford to buy it or produce it directly in their homes, like with the Lego block type of systems.
Yes. So thanks, Cindy. So let's zoom back from the global to the local. And, I wanted to pose to Dylan and Grace once again, maybe to Dylan first and foremost. Yours is quite a contrasting model to, the industrial at scale urban farm. I guess light is probably free, use water, you've got a simple model. So my question to you is, what do you think would be the upside potential of a household using products like yours, to be food self-sufficient, as a household? To what extent can you be self-sufficient? And secondly, and this is also to pose to Grace, how do you foresee your customer, for someone in your generation and beyond, how do you persuade them? How do you make them aware? I think we've talked about the usefulness of social media. And I think, Grace, in your case, you mentioned you're working with offtake agreements for a start, but you did quite a lot of market analysis, So how do you reach out to your customer? Who's your best type of customer that you foresee? How will you build the brand? Dylan, to you?
Yeah, so if I can answer first, the average Singaporean eats about 1.7 to 2.3 kilograms of vegetables a day. And assuming you're growing like something to keep yourself, that grows fast and to fulfill your vegetable supply, let's say spinach, which takes around 28 to 30 days to grow. It depends. For one person, if you had 5 one-kind blocks, sets, because they're sold in sets, you would have 30 different plants. Now, if you grew 30 different spinaches and you harvested one every day, and you would keep going, by the end you got to the 30th plant, your first plant would have grown again. And in that way you can be in control of your vegetable supply. Obviously you might want to buy from the market here and there, but it does let you be mostly independent. And for a family, you might consider getting bigger hydroponic stations for that, or I'm sure Grace's systems are perfectly suited for families. But yeah, the Singapore government wants to get 30% food sustainability by 2030, right? If I'm not wrong. And you know, these big industrial farms are fantastic. And if they can get more people to be accustomed to the idea of growing their own food in their own country, that's great. But the one kind block is a bit more from the bottom up as opposed from the top down. And it's definitely for families like you and me who want to be in control and see their own food.
Great. So I think what's emerging is a picture of like onion layers of food production, starting household, but really radiating out through the rest of the city and beyond. Maybe, Grace, what are your thoughts as well on building your customer base, reaching out to the community?
So, you know, Luke, in my own idealistic world, I think given a choice, people would want to feel connected to their food. They want to know where their food comes from and whether it's grown sustainably. So I think at some point, it may seem socially responsible for supermarkets to promote local produce and for restaurants to serve locally produced food. And consumers will want to do their part for the environment or for whatever reason, you know, by supporting local. And I think support local will be more than just a buzzword. People will demonstrate it, yeah? And I think this is because our local government, like Singapore Food Agency, they are very supportive of local produce. And, you know, besides funding startups, funding new technologies, they also run campaigns, you know, to educate the general public about local produce. And when they come up with any particular food standards that the local farms have got themselves certified, they will also educate the general public on these food standards. So I at this moment, I think just for the fact that we have a good story to tell, that our farm is organic, that our produce is very fresh and nutritious, is of superior quality. Just by that itself, I think we would be able to get a lot of buy-in from buyers in general. Yeah.
Great, thanks. I really see the questions coming in. We have like about 50 questions right now. Some of them surround, again, you know, I've been posing to you guys, you know, beyond just the policy goal of 30 by 30, you know, how do we see urban farming taking off in Singapore, you know, and around the world, talking about feeding a 10 billion world population, I think, by mid-century. So we have quite a lot of questions there. I think I just wanted to note one thing specifically. Kind of implicitly, we've mostly been talking about fibers, about veg, you know. So one of the topics coming up in the Q&A also is that obviously there are other food groups, you know, there's proteins as well, a lot of exciting developments in that space. Some plants also have protein content, you know. So maybe that's one way that we can open up the discussion. In fact, I was asking some of the guys before some of you before the panel, you know, you're planting vegetables right now. What about, you know, other things like aquaponics, for example, as a model? I wonder, Grace, if you're looking at future iterations of your business, would you be just focusing on vegetables?
Well, for the moment, our solution, okay, is focused on growing, our total solution is, or rather the technology that we have doesn't involve fishes. Aquaponics is fish and you grow vegetables at the same time, right? So the technology that we have right now, which we think is proven and tested and is really superior technology, is not aquaponics related. So we will just focus on what we think we have at the moment, which we think is the best. And we will just be focusing on that, at least for the next many years. Yeah.
Great, thanks for that. I think, you know, looking at the questions, you know, I guess some people are asking, you know, what basically, if I were to trunk a few questions together, you know, what are the challenges and opportunities that we need to confront to grow the space in Singapore? I think, for example, one that's often been raised is, can our produce be price competitive? in the market compared to imports. And so some people asking how much food demand can be satisfied by different production modes in Singapore. And maybe looking at the top ranked questions, I think back to Grace, you've got some fan mail. One questioner is asking, I really like how you transition from HR to be a leader in urban farming. How do you build the necessary skills and knowledge? So yeah, open to the panel to answer.
Okay, I just want to address the question on pricing you mentioned. So I mentioned earlier in my chat with Luke that we actually invested heavily in a feasibility study at the very beginning of this project, and part of this study required us to actually interact with buyers. And one of the questions that we asked buyers is whether they are prepared to pay a premium for locally produced organic vegetables, and the answer is yes. Okay, and the answer is yes. So there is a demand, okay, for organic vegetables of superior quality, and people are willing to, or rather the buyers that we are looking at are willing to pay this premium. And what is the other question that you said?
Oh, so someone was asking from your HR background, how do you get not only the interest but the skill sets to do this?
Okay, so I have already explained about my interest. It all started from when I was redesignated to take charge of sustainability in my company. Actually, I want to give credit to I'm still working in the same company, HSL Constructor. So I want to give credit to all my bosses because they are the ones that are also very, very passionate about food security and food sustainability. And even though I'm doing this on the side, they are supporting me in many ways. For example, they are providing capabilities in terms of engineering and construction. And they are also going to be the landlord, for my farm. So of course, because they want to support food sustainability and security, they gave us preferential rental rates. Yeah. So this is how they show their support. And I think building the skills to run an urban farm, I guess I just learned along the way. And I have a really, really good team. The Dutch consortium, we work really well together despite differences in our culture, but we are very amicable, and we work really well together. That's all I can say. And I learned a lot from them. I really learned a lot from them. And in fact, I was in the beginning of this webinar, I was telling Luke that, I should have gotten one or two of my partners to be part of the Q&A panel so they can help to answer some of the questions, because they are really the experts and I'm just a newbie. I'm a newbie.
Great. Well, thanks, Grace. Anyone else to jump in? I think, Cindy, back to you again, leaning on you for the global view. I think if we look at cities, be it, cities in Asia like Singapore or around the world, and cognizant that there are different types of produce, different types of things we need to make up our nutrition. What are the business models that you think would most likely succeed, in and around cities, be it in fibers or in other food types?
You mean the type of crops grown?
Yeah, the type of primary production. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at this moment it's mainly leafy green type of crops. So it's herbs, microgreens, maybe spinach, lettuce. It's kind of difficult to grow other crops in vertical farms. Strawberries is also a possibility, but for the other crops it's more difficult to get it economically viable, I think. But there are some breeders, for example, working on tomato plants that are not growing in a vertical direction, but stay smaller. So they redesign the plants to make them more suitable for vertical farming systems, for example. So there's more other types of vegetables that could be redesigned and make more suitable for vertical farming systems. But I think anyway, staple crops that are usually cheap are not that suitable for vertical farming. So I think high value crops like leafy greens remain the best ones to choose. And they have a short growing cycle. So you can grow a lot in 1 year in a very small area. So that makes it very attractive. And with a lot of other products, that's more of a difficulty. So we should not have the illusion that we can grow all food in urban farming systems. I think we have to be fair about that. But for some of the fresh products, it's definitely a good system, but definitely not for all of it.
I see. Okay. I think maybe going to Dylan. Um, I think anyone feel free to jump in with questions, but I have one to pursue again with Dylan. Who do you see as being your best customers moving forward in terms of their maybe like, let's say, for your youth generation's values and worldview? Like, do you think you guys care more about the environment because you have more runway of investment in experiencing the future of climate change? Do you think that will be something that will propel your type of business model?
Yeah, I think definitely it appears that the kids care more about the climate than the adults. And lots of these movements, like all my friends, especially in Finland and Singapore, they are very globally aware about stuff like climate change. And a lot of them are vegan, or they go to protests. Like my friends in Finland, they always attend marches, and they petition and they try and vote for the right things. So they're definitely more conscious about the economy and global politics. And that plays very well into stuff like the One Kind Block's business model, right? To make cities fertile from the ground up.
Yeah. Great. I think I have to distill, because we're running out of time. I think we have time to take just maybe one or two more questions. I think for Grace, back to you. There have been some questions about to do with the scale of vertical farming, to do with the infrastructure requirements. Let's say, and I wish you all the best if you're massively successful and want to do more and more of this. In Singapore or even other places around the world. What would the most ideal type of infrastructure be? I recall the company you're with is into construction and engineering, so maybe you have some insights there.
Infrastructure in terms of like the space,
the space, the
Okay, so definitely an empty warehouse, with really high ceiling. So that would be ideal. Yes, empty warehouse with really high ceiling, and is what HSL, my landlord, my employer currently offer. Large warehouses, strong columns, and then with very high ceiling, because we're talking about vertical farming, right? So we want to build up. So the higher you can build up, the greater will be your cultivation area, right? So that is how you can really optimize the growing.
And back to the point of automation or human labor. What do you think ultimately you would automate? What would be done with human hands and human skill?
So our system is highly organized and very efficient. It is balanced. In a way, it is automated using trial of water basins. Yeah. So water, besides being the growing medium, is also the transportation from seedlings to mature vegetables for harvesting. Yeah. So it's a natural movement of the water that pushes the crops from the beginning to the end. So our farm is very labor efficient, so do not need a lot of labor at all, despite the fact that we do not have the only thing that is super highly automated, or rather that is of high technology, is our indoor climate control system. So our indoor climate control technology is high tech and it's automated, but other than that, it is just the water that is helping us along. So by doing that, the produce stay in the same conditions until harvest. Yeah. So I would think it is because I have seen a lot of highly automated farms, and being super high tech, super everything automated may not be the best case scenario, may not be the best for the farm. Yeah, so our solution is well balanced.
Thanks for that. And I think so it's basically adapting the best model to fit the business based on your analysis. I think on that related note, there was a question from one audience member on what were the greatest challenges in adapting, the technologies of your Dutch partners to the Singapore context, the Singapore environment, if any, or was it really quite modular in that sense? You mentioned you just need a warehouse space.
I'm sorry, Luke, because I was distracted by some of the questions that was coming through. Can you repeat, please?
Oh, sorry. Okay. So the question I was looking at was one asking, did you have any challenge in adapting the Dutch farming model of your partners for installation in Singapore?
No challenges. I think okay, let me see. I would say that, the Dutch, they are very meticulous and they want this farm to be nothing short of perfect. So we spent a lot of time, on the design, on the space planning, because we really want to optimize the space to make sure that the processes are optimized, we are highly efficient. So my engineering team in Singapore is working very closely with the Dutch engineering team so that we can both contribute our strength, to make this project the way we intend it to be. So I wouldn't say there are any specific challenges. We work really well together, and it is really about tapping on each other's strengths. Yes.
Great. I'm not sure if you have time to answer this, but I think you're getting a lot of questions. So one of them, okay, or maybe more generally, I think I've been bugging you a lot about your business. Someone's asking, there's a lot of construction that happens when you build a condo. It may be empty for a while, or some other empty spaces. Let's say if there are empty spaces that can be used for just a given period of time before they are used for something else. Do you think that indoor farming systems may be suitable for such spaces with a shorter tenure?
No, the answer is no, because the investment cost is very high. So we are looking at 20 years to 30 years at least. Yes.
I see. Okay. I think maybe just one last question for Cindy, and then I'll invite Dylan also to have any final thoughts. Cindy, so I think this chat is an example of international collaboration, in this case between the Netherlands and Singapore. And of course, you're looking at different types of stakeholders that you've covered, for financing, regulation, and so on. So for the future of food, what is your take on the type of collaborations that need to be strengthened the most for the future of food to be more secure moving forward? Is it international partnership or partnership between certain stakeholders and the farm community?
It's not about the business only, but I think it's important that you collaborate with the technology side, companies providing technologies, but also with local governments. It is needed sometimes because they have to give permits. You cannot just start a vertical farm in an office space because you work with water and sometimes and with other materials. Sometimes it's not allowed, and you need to, and the infrastructure should be right. There should be electricity available, etc., etc. So I think it's important to work with different type of stakeholders and also your local communities. Actually, it can be quite beneficial. We've seen some rooftop urban farms in New York, and all the property prices in that area were increasing because people like the greens and the local area really improved. So that can also be social benefits. So I think you really should look what is most suitable for your business plan and for your neighborhood. But I think government support is needed in some kind of way. Maybe not subsidies, but support in another way. But also with economic advice, because many people in this business, they are new, they don't have any agricultural knowledge. So it's really important to have people also in the business that help you with growing actually the vegetables. So.
Thanks. So I think in short, it really takes a village of different stakeholders, and also in the end, it also changes the village, maybe into an edible garden city. So with that, maybe for Dylan, any parting thoughts? What will success look like for you and for Singapore moving forward in our food system? And if you can have your wildest dreams come true, what role would you be playing in?
Wow, that's a big question. I mean, yeah, the ideal is to be a larger producer of our own food and our intake, and I'm sure that's the goal for different companies in Singapore already. I did some research here and there. Hopefully, out of the 30%, by 2030, the one-kind block can help from the ground up 5%. Can help can help the culture of growing your own food. But of course, the government and bigger corporations need to have farming on an industrial scale. Yeah, I guess the one-kind block is what it is now. But if there's a better way to make cities fertile and make growing easier for everyone, then I'll be on that in the next few years.
Great. And venture after venture and building on that. So I think we've run out of time, but I think it's fair to say we've covered a lot of ground that hopefully leaves the others with us today inspired and informed. I think my takeaway in general from all the sharing is that there's a vibrant ecosystem building in Singapore and around the world, with indoor, maybe vertical farming as one key pillar of that has a lot of potential for the future. But may the best practices, success strategies be. I think we've rehearsed some of them today, and it's for all the stakeholders to move forward, to partner, to compete in the future, to realize that positive future for food. So with that, thank you so much again, Grace, Cindy, Dylan, and I think over to Barbara, who's sharing more on the next in the series.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you so much for moderating today, and also thanks to our three speakers, Cindy, Grace, and Dylan, for sharing your experience and your knowledge with us today, and to our colleagues at SG Innovate for another successful webinar in the series. I would also like to invite all of you to our next session in the Future of Food webinar series, which will be on the other let's say, other side of the food chain on food waste management. This will be on Tuesday, 28 July at 3:30 p.m. Singapore time. I would like to thank all of you for attending today and for all of your questions. I think we have not been able to answer all of them, but most of them, and we will go through them and share some answers still in the follow-up email. As well as the recording of today's session. So for now, I would just like to thank you all for attending today and to wish you a happy weekend. And with this, to close the session, see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Barbara, Dylan, Grace, Cindy, and Luke. Enjoy your weekend. And Cindy, have a good Friday at work first before you enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.